Happy New Year, everybody. We are starting off the first essential movie of 2021 with 1939's Wizard of Oz. Got that right up there in the corner. This movie has some history to it and a lot of awesome little tie-ins that came after the fact in the last 82 years since its release, and has been called one of the greatest films of all time. So let's get into a little bit about the background and the plot. So the 1939 version of Wizard of Oz is actually an adaptation of a novel from L. Frank Baum, if I'm saying that right. And the novel was The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. There was actually a series of this novel that led to other sequels, both in comic book and film adaptations, including the 1972 animated version called Journey Back to Oz. And if you haven't seen it, the 1985 Walt Disney release of Return to Oz, which was Feruza Balk, I know I messed that name up, from The Craft. That was her first movie, her film debut as a young Dorothy Gale. But man, is that very, very different from the 1939 version. If you haven't seen it, check it out and let me know what you think. There was even a mini-series that came out a few years ago called Tin Man, which I think was a USA production, possibly. Not the country, the channel. And I'm pretty sure I have it in my collection of DVDs. So I might want to revisit that later on this month, or definitely within this year. The 1939 version of Wizard of Oz is definitely characterized by its use of Technicolor, the fantasy storyline, and memorable characters. But the thing that has always stood out to me was the colorization. There's a scene where we change from the black and white to the Technicolor that just seemed like maybe the first bit of movie magic that I could remember or imagine seeing. But we'll talk about that when it happens. So now time for the plot crunch. Our story follows Dorothy Gale and Toto, who live on Aunt Em and Uncle Henry's farm in Kansas. There's no mention of Dorothy's parents, which I'm assuming is why Disney picked it up in 1985. And one of the things I have to say about the way that this is filmed is when we are in the sepia, however you pronounce it, when we're in the black and white version of this universe, everything is so drab. The landscape is very flat. There's no blooming trees or flowers. Just everything looks so bleh. Which leads for a great contrast when we end up in Oz in a little bit. So if you're watching this, keep in mind there's no hills, there's no valleys. It's a straight horizon in the background. Everything just looks really close to the ground. No life in it. We are also introduced to 3 farmhands on Aunt Em's farm that are going to play a very big part in the rest of the story. And let's not forget about the very subtle foreshadowing like this.
Why, see, she's as scared as I am.
What's the matter? Go let little old pig make a coward out of you?
Speaking of foreshadowing, let's meet Miss Gulch, who shows up on the farm with a letter from the sheriff to take Toto away. After being given the letter from the sheriff, Aunt Em and Uncle Henry have to go along with giving Miss Gulch Toto, and she puts him in a picnic basket and straps him to the back of her bike, and as she takes off, Toto just lifts up the lid and jumps out. When Toto gets back to the house, Dorothy does the only thing she can think of to save him from the Wicked Witch, Mrs. Gulch, and that is to run away from home. And this is where we meet the wonderful Professor Marvel, who is a con man with a heart of gold, who tells Dorothy, after robbing her of a picture in her bag, that Aunt Em is home heartbroken. It's part of his ploy to get her to not run away and go back and check on her family. She gets back just in time for a tornado to be hitting the farm. Now, Aunt Em, Uncle Henry, and the three farm hands have already locked themselves in a basement, which Dorothy cannot get into, so she runs into the house to seek shelter from the terrible, terrible weather. And it's inside the house and inside her bedroom where she gets hit in the head with a 2x4 or a piece of debris and falls on the bed, maybe unconscious, maybe just down for a second. And this is where you have to pick sides. Are you going to pick the side of Dorothy was asleep and unconscious throughout all of this? Or was this really a magical trip that she was on? So let me know in the comments below what team you're on. Are you team magic or team sleeping? During this time, the house gets picked up by the tornado and is flown all around Kansas and even further. But on the trip in the tornado, we are exposed to a wonderful scene outside of the window with flying cows that are standing perfectly still but floating around. We see the farmhands, we see Aunt Em and Uncle Henry, but we do get a flash of something that is very interesting to me. We see Mrs. Gulch transform into the Wicked Witch in this scene. Now, aside from that, all of the things outside of the window were things that Dorothy was already familiar with, except for the foreshadowing of Mrs. Gulch turning into the Wicked Witch. So maybe that sways your decision on whether you're team magic or team sleep. When the house finally lands, we get to see this magical, amazing transition from the black and white to the Technicolor, I almost said Dreamcoat, which is not correct, to the Technicolor view of bright colors, big flowers, hilly backgrounds, just very, very, very different from Kansas. We get a lot of information hurled at us in a very small amount of time. We find out that Dorothy has landed in Munchkin Land, which is surrounded, or which is filled with munchkins, which I don't know if that is the politically correct term for them or not. We learn that there is a Wicked Witch of the East and the West, and these are not good witches. We learn that Dorothy has killed the Wicked Witch of the East. We learn there is a good witch named Glenda, who is the good witch of the North, but we never hear anything about the good witch of the South. We do get Glenda asking Dorothy if she is a witch, and there have been people that have speculated that Dorothy is, but again, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Is it a dream? Is she sleeping? Is she a witch? Is she a person? There's a lot of unanswered questions about this, which makes me want to read the entire series of books and see if I can get all of the answers. So the Wicked Witch of the West goes to take the ruby slippers off of her sister, which were supposed to be silver in the book, but they just wanted to show off the Technicolor that they had, so they went with ruby instead of silver. And Glenda steals the ruby slippers off of the dead witch and puts them on Dorothy's feet under a spell that nobody can take them off of her. So let's just take a second to see, or to try to figure out who the good guys and bad guys are here. Dorothy drops a house on somebody, kills her, steals her shoes, and then refuses to give them back to, assumingly, the proper heir of the shoes. That doesn't sound exactly like hero material to me, but it is definitely painted in a way where we are on their side. After the Wicked Witch vows to get revenge on Dorothy and her little dog, too, Dorothy asks Glenda about how to get back home, and Glenda tells her that if she follows the yellow brick road, she will end up at the Emerald City, where the Wizard of Oz will be able to grant her wish to get her back home. Now, we're going to come back to this at the end of the plot crunch here, because there are a lot of issues I have with this interaction once we learn some more things. While following the yellow brick road, she comes across 3 companions, starting with the Scarecrow, who confides in Dorothy that he desperately wants a brain so that he can think and be intelligent and not just be a scarecrow. However, in the next scene, they are attacked by angry trees when Dorothy tries to pluck an apple to eat. And the Scarecrow has this ingenious plan to insult the quality of the apples so that the trees throw them as weapons towards Dorothy and the Scarecrow, and they get to scoop up food and be on their way. So for somebody that doesn't have a brain, that is a really, really, really smart move. They then come across the Tin Man, who has been rusted in place for the last year. They use his oil can, they get his limbs working again, and he confides in them that he wishes he had a heart so that he could love. Dorothy tells the Tin Man to join her and the Scarecrow on their trip to the Emerald City so that the Wizard of Oz can give him a heart, and he joins. I think this is the part in the movie where the Wicked Witch comes in and threatens the Tin Man and the Scarecrow not to help Dorothy, or she'll go after them as well. She throws a fireball at the Scarecrow. She vanishes, and they go on her way. And no, it is not a Munchkin swinging in the background. I don't know if we will ever know the real story, but the official story is that it was one of the birds that was brought in, like the giant egret or whatever, that was earlier in the scene with the Tin Man. The 3 of them come across what will become the 4th member of the group in the Cowardly Lion, who starts off being very ferocious and aggressive. So I don't know if L. Frank Baum understands the word courage as much as he might think, but the lion joins the group as they all go to the Emerald City. And right as the Emerald City is in sight, this big, beautiful, green, emerald, shining city, they go running across a big field of flowers when the Wicked Witch casts a sleeping spell. I'm noticing a lot of trends with spells and witches back around this time. It puts the group to sleep when they are so close to their destination. But it does make me wonder why they're cutting through there instead of following the yellow brick road. Maybe if they had listened, they wouldn't have gotten in trouble. While they are asleep and wasting away in this slumber, Glenda the Good Witch casts a spell to help them by spreading asbestos over them to wake them up. In the movie, it is snow, but in real life, they use asbestos to mimic snow in the movie. What a terrible idea. But it does wake them up, and they continue on their journey. They get to the Emerald City, they introduce themselves, they get all pedicured and restuffed and shined and buffed, and they look their best when they go to meet the Wizard of Oz. And this is the scariest guy you would ever want to ask for help. It's a floating head in the center of the room. There's smoke and fire, and he is talking in a loud, booming voice that terrifies each and every member of our heroes in this story. Dorothy stands up and tells him what they all need and that she was informed he could help. He tells them that he'll only help them if they bring back the flying broomstick from the Wicked Witch of the West, which they agree to, even knowing or realizing that they'd have to kill her in order to get it. So then going back to, if we don't know who the good guys and bad guys are, Here's a witch just chilling in her castle, wanting her dead sister's shoes from the lady who killed her, and the Wizard of Oz says, "Go kill her and steal some stuff for me." And also, we'll come back to this part too after we find out some things. Before they embark on their journey, the Wicked Witch attacks them with her army of flying monkeys, and she kidnaps Dorothy and Toto and brings them back to her castle, where the Wicked Witch plots killing Dorothy, because that's the only way she can get the slippers off of Dorothy. In order to break the spell, you gotta kill the person wearing the shoes. Toto, being the lassie-like hero that he is, escapes from the Wicked Witch and the castle, much like he did Miss Gulch in the beginning of the film, runs back to the Lion, the Scarecrow, and the Tin Man to alert them of Dorothy's impending doom. He brings them back to the castle so they can save her, and a fight breaks out between the three and the guards of the castle. They end up chasing Tin Man, Lion, Scarecrow, and Dorothy and Toto in a room, and the Wicked Witch says, "I'm going to kill all of you now," and she sets her sights on and starts with the Scarecrow. She sets fire to his arm, and as the flames are growing, Dorothy grabs a bucket of water, splashes them on his arm, and hits the Wicked Witch, whose only weakness is water, that she kept in a bucket in the room where she was holding the person captive. Maybe a small flaw in your plan, but I digress. The guards are so happy that the Wicked Witch is dead that they start praising Dorothy and even give her the broomstick to bring back to Oz to get their wishes. When they get back to the Emerald City, the Wizard of Oz is acting real shady-like and kind of postponing or kind of pushing off the fulfillment of the wishes that he promised once they got back with the broomstick. And Toto happens to see out of the corner of his eye a disturbance on a curtain to the side of the room. He goes over and pulls back the curtain, and the group sees that the Wizard of Oz is just a man behind the curtain. They confront him, and he swears up and down that he is a good man, but a bad wizard. We come to find out that he is actually not even from Oz. He's from Kansas. He got there by accident on a hot air balloon and landed in Oz the same way Dorothy did with the house. Minus the tornado, he just got there by air. But he does manage to BS his way through fulfilling these promises that he made to the Scarecrow, the Lion, and the Tin Man. By giving a diploma, just a piece of paper, to the Scarecrow, and a pin of courage to the Lion, and a heart pendant for the Tin Man. Everybody has a tangible, physical representation of what it was they wanted in the first place that was really inside of them all of the time. So that trope, it goes back almost 100 years of, you had the power in you the whole time. He tells Dorothy that there is nothing he has for her. He doesn't have that kind of magic. The only thing he can do is to bring her back to Kansas himself in the hot air balloon that he kept in case the people from the Emerald City ever got wise to him being a con man. We're going to take a little trip back to the first time that they met the Wizard of Oz, and him knowing that he could not fulfill the promises he made to them when he sent them on a suicide mission. The chances of them succeeding were so slim. He sent them all to be killed instead of just saying, can't help you. So I don't think the Wizard of Oz was as good as a person as we were led to believe in the first place. But he does offer to bring Dorothy back himself. They have a big ceremony where he tells everybody in the Emerald City that he's going to be leaving, but he leaves in charge the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, and the Lion. They will run the Emerald City while he is gone. Everybody is happy. They are rejoicing. Dorothy and Toto are in the hot air balloon basket. They are getting ready to take off. Toto sees a cat in the audience. Toto jumps out of Dorothy's arm to chase the cat. Dorothy jumps out of the basket to chase the dog, and the hot air balloon takes off and cannot be lowered back down. Dorothy appears to be stuck again in Oz, in the Emerald City, until Glenda comes bubbling her way back down and explains to Dorothy that if she just clicks her heels together and says there's no place like home, she will go home. Because she has had the power inside of her the whole time.
No, God!
Dorothy asks Glenda, so I've been able to do this the entire time. Glenda says, you wouldn't have believed me if I told you in the first place. Let me tell you one thing. If I had just landed my house on top of a witch and went from black and white to color and was surrounded by 300 little people and bubble floating witches and scary witches, and I just killed some broad and then her shoes jumped from her feet to my feet, I will believe anything you tell me at that point, because I apparently have no idea what's going on. After Dorothy clicks her heels together, she wakes up in black and white back at home in the bed and tells everybody of her story and how real it was and who was there and what happened and how she loves everybody, and they have her committed, and they throw her into an insane asylum and give her shock therapy. And I'm sorry, that's in the sequel. At the end of this one, it ends on a happy note, but it's a good happy ending to that movie, which does not prepare you at all for the nightmare fuel that is Return to Oz. We will have to talk about that at another time. If you have not seen it, go check it out. Overall, The Wizard of Oz is a fabulous movie. There is some great songs in there, absolutely memorable characters, the color, the setting, it's so amazing and over the top. If for some reason you haven't seen it, definitely go check it out. If you have friends that haven't seen it, make them watch it. If you have children, make them watch it. I'm glad that you guys took this journey with me, but now we are to my favorite part. We get to scratch it off! Ah! Alright, so my favorite part of this is scratching off. Oh, how awesome is that? Just like in the movie, from going black and white or black and blue to the very colorful ruby slippers. Look how pretty they look. So that is 1939's Wizard of Oz. This week I will be checking out Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. I don't even think I've heard of this movie, so I am very curious to see what is in store for me. I hope you guys have enjoyed this this review, this plot crunch, this whatever it is that I'm doing. I hope everybody is having a great new year. I hope this is way better than 2020 for everybody. Thank you for joining me for this, and I will catch you next Tuesday. Later days. And I almost forgot, starting next week, we have our 100 horror movies, starting with The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. So check back on Thursday for that. And we just started on Patreon a movie review, much like this, only not following the posters. If you want to check that out, the first one's free, and we have the link for it down below. And very special thanks to all of my Patreon followers. It means a lot that I have you guys for another year. I hope everything is going great for you guys as well. Take care, and I'll see you at the Patreon.